Summary of Chapter 4, The Imperial Duel, written for an engaging English narration. The Imperial Duel, Britain, France, and the Fate of a Continent. 1. The Beaver Wars, a proxy struggle, 1640 to 1701. The 17th century was defined by a bloody struggle for economic dominance known as the Beaver Wars. The Iroquois Confederacy, armed with Dutch firearms, sought to control the lucrative fur trade. This wasn't just a tribal conflict, it was a proxy war between European powers. The Iroquois, backed by the Dutch and British, fought the Algonquian tribes, backed by the French. By the end of the 17th century, the Iroquois had expanded their territory tenfold, displacing tribes like the Sioux and cementing themselves as a regional superpower. 2. The Iroquois Confederacy, a legacy of unity. The strength of the Iroquois lay in their Great Law of Peace. Founded in 1570 as a union of 5 nations, later 6, they established a sophisticated democratic council of 50 chiefs. This unity allowed them to remain a formidable political force for centuries. Even today, the Iroquois maintain a fierce sense of sovereignty. They issue their own tribal passports, compete as a national team in lacrosse, and even formally declared war on Germany during both world wars as an independent nation. 3. Blood in the Southeast and the slave trade. While the North fought for fur, the South was consumed by land greed and a predatory Indian slave trade. The Tuscarora and Yamasee Wars, driven by land encroachment and the kidnapping of their people, tribes in the Carolinas rose up in a series of brutal conflicts. The Yamasee War nearly annihilated the British colony of South Carolina. The tragedy of the Siwi, in a heartbreaking attempt to bypass European middlemen, the Siwi people built a fleet of canoes to sail directly to England for trade. Most drowned in a hurricane, the survivors were rescued, only to be sold into slavery in the West Indies. The shift to African slavery, by 1730, as the indigenous population was depleted by war and disease, the labor-intensive plantation economy transitioned to the forced labor of enslaved Africans. 4. The Great Game, Britain versus France. From 1689 to 1763, Britain and France engaged in 4 massive intercolonial wars. While they began as European disputes, they ended as a fight for the soul of North America. The French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. This final, decisive conflict ignited in the Ohio Valley. Despite their vast territory, the French were outnumbered by British settlers. The outcome: France suffered a total defeat, ceding all lands east of the Mississippi to Britain. New France effectively vanished from the map, leaving only tiny outposts like Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. 5. The Fracture and the Future. The era of imperial duels left deep scars. The American Revolutionary War eventually fractured the Iroquois Longhouse, as tribes were forced to choose sides between the British and the American rebels. Furthermore, the betrayal of tribes like the Cherokee, who launched their own war against the British in 1759, fostered a deep-seated prejudice among European leaders. This bias would set the stage for decades of harsh, discriminatory policies against indigenous peoples in the newly formed United States. Key takeaway: the Imperial Duel wasn't just a war between 2 kings, it was a global chess match where indigenous nations were both powerful players and the ultimate victims of a changing world order.